I'm bigcal and welcome to my world. Last year I took a look at the Nintendo Wii U game Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and I loved it. But now it's time for me to go back to the original revival of the Donkey Kong Country series and review it. So today I am looking at no other than Donkey Kong Country Returns. So as everybody probably knows by now, Donkey Kong Country was originally made by Rare for the Super Nintendo. We had 3 games on there, plus a bunch of handheld games. Along came the N64, and going with the trend of moving everything to 3D, Rare took Donkey Kong into 3D and we got Donkey Kong 64, which was a very different game. Sadly, after that, Rare kind of died off and, got bought by some company and never did anything worthwhile ever again. But the Donkey Kong franchise remained because Nintendo owned it. Unfortunately, it was left to becoming a rhythm-based game series using bongos and a few others. Then, in 2010, we got a gift from the heavens themselves, a brand new Donkey Kong Country game made by Retro Studios, who had already proven their worth with the Metroid Prime series. And that game, of course, was Donkey Kong Country Returns. And what a return it was. No more bongos, no 3D collectathons, just pure 2D platforming glory. Visuals were fantastic for a non-HD console. The music, tremendous. The gameplay, just as wonderful as ever, and immediately reminds you of the old, great classics on the Super Nintendo. The story itself is just as basic too. A bunch of tikis, known as the Tiki Tak tribe, have hypnotised the animals on Kong Island and are forcing them to steal all of the bananas. For some reason, Donkey Kong cannot be hypnotised, either due to a strong will or small brain, and thus begins the journey to take back all of those precious bananas. Okay, so the controls. We'll get this out of the way first. The game was on the Nintendo Wii, and yes, it does utilise motion controls. Thankfully, they're not as intrusive as a lot of games tended to do at the time. You take your normal Wii remote and you turn it to the side like a classic old Nintendo controller, the original NES. From here you have jumping, you've got your moving about buttons and things like that. And the motion controls come in for a couple of different aspects. Firstly, if you want to ground pound, you do this. Oh yeah, ground pound, ground pound, ground pound. Luckily, you don't have to move your arms as much as that, and ow, that kind of hurt my head. Yeah, so that's ground pound. Then you can also hold the down button and do the exact same, and Donkey Kong will blow air out, which can be used to turn windmills and things like that, or blow certain petals out of flowers, and items will be revealed. And then if you're moving and you start going like this, you will roll. And if you're just Donkey Kong, you'll do a single roll, and you can also jump off that to do a big long jump. Or if you have a certain helper with you, you can keep rolling and just roll through enemies, which is really quite helpful. So the actual motion controls aren't very intrusive and they work very well for the most part. The only issue I ever really had was sometimes there seems to be a bit of delay with the game realising if you're moving or if you've stopped. So you're moving along and you need to ground pound something, you let go of the moving button, you go like that, and the game thinks you're still moving and you roll. Sometimes off of a cliff, or other times you'll be moving along and you'll go like this, and the game will think you've stopped and you end up ground pounding instead of rolling. Now, if you're trying for a big long jump, you're buggered, or if you're trying to run from something, you've just stopped dead in your tracks and you're also potentially buggered. But aside from that, I did find the controls to be very good overall. I think there's also a setup where you can have the Wii Remote like this and the nunchuck, and you move around and you do this or whatever. For me, every time the game starts up, it just tells you to do that with your controller, so I never looked into any other control options. And I never really thought about doing so because I didn't need to. This works fine, in my opinion. Diddy Kong is back as well. You can find him in special DK barrels, pick them up and throw them, and Diddy Kong will appear. You gain an extra 2 hit points, and you can also hold in the jump button and hover for a short period of time, which is, of course, extremely useful. So you'll definitely want to keep Diddy Kong with you as often as possible, especially going into boss fights, though you are usually given one right before the boss fight, so all is good. Other ways to help out in this game is Cranky Kong's shop. In each world you get access to the shop. I think you originally only get access to it once you've been in and bought something and come out it disappears, and then I think you have to either gain all the Kong letters or puzzle pieces in the level for it to open back up and allow you to go back in. While you're there you can buy extra lives from just 1, 3 and then I think 7. You can also get Squawks the bird to help you, who will help uncover secrets. You can also get Invincibility Potion, which you can take at the beginning of the level and makes you invincible until your first hit. And you can also get a key, which can be used to unlock a special level in each world. And often if you get the key, open the level and beat it, you'll gain a shortcut through that world, and they're able to skip a handful of levels if you want. For me personally, I only ever bought the key after I'd completed each world. That way I wasn't using the shortcut and missing out on any levels. And of course, to buy all of these items you need gold coins, which are in the levels and fairly easy to collect. And of course you also collect bananas within levels, which are used to gain extra lives. Every 100 gets you an extra life. So bananas are like coins, and coins are like... I suppose coins are just actually like coins for a change, unlike Mario, where coins are just used as lives, essentially. But here bananas are lives because bananas are food and edible. That makes sense, and coins are used to purchase things, which also makes sense. Donkey Kong makes more sense than Mario? The fuck kind of world are we living in? The levels you will traverse throughout the game all depend on which part of the island you are on. The island is split into multiple worlds, each with their own theme, ranging from your typical jungle, the beach, caves, volcano, and more. For a non-HD console such as the Wii, these locations still look absolutely tremendous, with bright, vibrant colours, tons of detail, and a great design. Within the levels you will also have particular play mechanics, be it swinging from vines, avoiding crashing waves, riding on those damn minecarts, or flying around in a barrel. The beach world is definitely my favourite, as I always love the visuals in water levels. The difficulty curve is pretty much perfect too, with each world getting progressively more difficult and combining level mechanics for even more fun, and occasionally frustration. While playing through each level you will be collecting bananas, which as already mentioned gives you an extra life per 100, the gold coins to spend in Cranky Kong's shop, hidden puzzle pieces and Kong letters, which are mainly used for completionists, though I do believe collecting them all will open up bonus levels too. More on that later. While I enjoy collecting the puzzle pieces and the Kong letters, it was never something I truly went out of my way to find because, again, I'm not a completionist. But the option is there, and there are a ton of cool little hidden secret areas for you to find the puzzle pieces in. The Kong letters, often always in plain sight, but sometimes very difficult to get. And they are just a little extra level of difficulty for those who want it. At the end of each world is of course a boss fight. The Tikis hypnotise certain animals and set them loose on you, forcing you to figure out the patterns to avoid taking damage and discover how to hurt them. Some of the boss fights are fun, but some are very tedious. Overall, I probably liked half and hated the other half. Then there is the final boss fight that does something a little different. There is a level that you have to complete before the boss. That's right, normally with the boss fight, you go into the level, you walk along a path, you get a DK barrel if you don't have Diddy Kong with you, and then a cutscene will happen, you'll see the boss becoming the boss, being hypnotised, and then you fight. The final level though, you do get a Diddy Kong barrel, but then you have to jump into another barrel and avoid obstacles, shooting up to the top of the volcano to battle the final boss. On one hand, I really like this. I like going through a boss level before you get to the fight. That's always cool. But at the same time, if they did this for every boss, if all of them weren't just like a barrel level or something where one hit kills you, then you do have the potential of losing hit points going into the boss fight. And trust me, a lot of these boss fights, as I've mentioned, can be quite tedious. So you really do want all 4 hit points that you get from being, full life and with Diddy Kong. But yeah, it did make a nice change. It made the final boss feel that little more special when you didn't just walk into the area and immediately fight him. Once the final boss is defeated, in one of the stranger ways I've ever seen in a game, all the animals return to their normal selves and the bananas are free! Following the credits, a golden temple rises from the ground. In order to access the levels within here, you need to collect 8 orbs. And where do you find these orbs? Well, it doesn't actually tell you, but I can assume that you gain them by collecting all the Kong pieces or all the puzzle pieces. I believe doing one of the other or even both in each world will unlock a special level, and at the end of that level is possibly the orb. As I said, I'm not a completionist, so I haven't done this and unlocked it, but I love that when games do this, because it does add that extra layer of challenge. As I've said before, if you want it. The game itself can be quite difficult, and in a very good way usually. Like I said, the difficulty progression is very good. It doesn't start off super hard or anything, it starts off fairly easy and it gradually goes up. But if you want that extra layer of difficulty, you do get it. You're not required to do it, you don't need to do it to get the end of the game cutscene or anything. I don't believe there's any difference. If you collect everything, you finish the game as normal, and that's cool. But if you want to go one step further, you can. And that is Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Nintendo Wii. It was a little odd talking about it after already doing Tropical Freeze, because Tropical Freeze does add a few extra things to it. So it was kind of weird talking about mechanics that aren't maybe as polished or don't exist in this game when they do the sequel that I've already mentioned. But overall, I think I did okay. Did I? Let me know. So the game itself, the visuals, wonderful, especially as I said for a non-HD console. They're right up there with Mario Galaxy, in my opinion. The music and the sound in the game is perfect. Sound effects sound great. The music for each particular level and theme for the level, spot on. You can't complain there. The controls, 99% of the time, are fantastic. It is essentially a first-party Nintendo game, being Donkey Kong Country, even if Retro Studios did it. So maybe it's a second-party game. But either way, for such a big title, expecting the motion controls, if they're in there, to be kind of perfect is kind of what we expect really from Nintendo. So yeah, no complaints there. There's only that 1% where it will get a bit frustrating with the ground pounding and the rolling, getting confused sometimes. Yeah, so the game itself, I have to say, as much as I love Tropical Freeze, I do prefer this one. Is it because it came out first? I don't know. Is it because I played it first? Maybe. But I think the game, I just enjoyed it more because I think there was more of a challenge with this one. While Tropical Freeze did have some challenging levels, I did kind of breeze through it pretty easily. This one did take me quite a bit of extra time, especially the final boss. For some reason, it took me months to beat the final boss. I'm not mean every day playing on it for months trying to do it. I mean, I tried doing it when I originally played it, got up to the final boss, couldn't do him. And then every so often I would go back to it and just have a couple of tries and wouldn't be able to do it. Finally did it for this video, of course, but would you know it, the damn footage didn't record. So, yeah. I'll probably find some way of getting footage of the final boss for the video. So if you see the footage of the final boss in the video, it's because I found a way to record footage, either from beating it again or getting it from somewhere else. But yeah, I just enjoyed this one that little bit more than Tropical Freeze. So, on my rating system, out of 100, Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Nintendo Wii gets a score of 90. Fantastic game, a must-own for any Nintendo Wii or Wii U owner, since you can play them on the Wii U. Highly, highly recommended, especially if you loved the old Donkey Kong Country series on the Super Nintendo. So, I'm Big Cal, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.